Okay. We are making a shift from the purity of principles and are going to see some examples of what I consider sort of principled pragmatism. All of us who live in Goodman houses are living in houses that are between 50 and 75 years old. And buildings have to change over time. Components need to be replaced. The way we live or expect to live changes. Technology changes, and the world changes. And I believe that Charles Goodman lovingly and brilliantly designed modern buildings, but I think he hoped they would evolve, that he did not expect them to become period pieces. And there are some clues that we know that's true. For example, in Hammond Wood, and I know you're all hearing a lot about Hammond Wood because we both live or lived there. And this may or may not be the case in Hollin Hills. In Hammond Wood, our houses are smaller. Our smallest house is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 800. Our second size house, which is the one I live in, is what in Hollin Hills is your smallest model. It's about just over 1,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath. And then you take those two floor plans and you stack them to get the 2-story houses, so it's roughly 1,600 and 2,100 square feet. And those are the basic models that we have. And this 2-story houses were all sold with the upper level finished, living room, dining room, kitchen, bathroom, 2 or 3 bedrooms, depending on the model. And the lower level, which was the same footprint, was essentially open space. It was completely unfinished. It was left for the owners to decide what that should be for them. And personally, I think that the best changes are the ones that are done in the spirit of the original design intent, which to me, as so many of the presenters have said today, are about the elegant, minimal refinement and the importance of the expression of the structure and the materiality, the abundant daylight, rational geometries, and the way the buildings integrate into the landscape. So I'm going to be showing you some examples of changes to the houses in Hammond Wood. I'm not presenting this as a manual on what you should do. I'm going to be showing you good, bad, and indifferent examples, but I think they will demonstrate the importance of the original design philosophies, and I hope it will inspire people to think about how, when they do make changes, that it may not be duplicating exactly what was there, but there is a principle behind those changes. John mentioned covenants. In Hammond Wood, covenants, when it was originally built, there were no garages, there were no driveways, there were no sidewalks, there were no fences, there were no structures that were allowed on the sites except for a single-family house that was a maximum of 2.5 stories and a 2-car garage. Anything else that was proposed had to go through design review of a committee that was composed of Paul Berman and Paul Hammond, who were the 2 developers, and Charles Goodman. And I have been told by several of the original owners there were no fences in early Hammond Wood, so I'm assuming they never approved the fences if anybody wanted one. That covenant expired in 1976, which was the 25th anniversary of Hammond Wood. And there was an option in the covenants that if the majority of the homeowners wanted to form a committee to continue the practice of review, it could be done, and that was not exercised. So in Hammond Wood, we have no governing body, whether it's civic or governmental, that has any say over design review. Largely, it's been benign. No structures, no houses have been torn down. There have been very few, a couple renovations that have resulted in non-contributing structures when historic designation was given. And unlike Hollin Hills, about 70% of the houses in Hammond Wood, even though they're smaller than the Hollin Hill houses, almost 70% have no additions. That people are living in the original houses, that they continue to make it work for them. And because of that, the modifications to the houses have rarely been wholesale. There have been a couple times people have gone in and just done a full renovation, but more often it has been people who have lived there for an extended period of time, who every time they'll replace the kitchen, they'll replace the bathroom. The changes are smaller, much, much smaller. And so, as I said, I think this is to inspire you to think about things, but not to say this is the only way to do it, or even in many ways the best way. It's just a comparison of how different choices can affect the houses that we live in. And some of these things are going to seem quite small, but I do recall when I was about to buy my house and I was looking at the Google Earth view, or satellite view, and it happened to be a winter shot, so you could see the structure of all the trees and you could see the roofs. And I thought, that could be a neighborhood of double wides. That was the shape, that was the form, that was the size of the house. And so some of the things that I'm about to show may seem like very small details, but with the Goodman houses, it is all about the details. So this is an original Goodman house. Gladys Kraft has been mentioned by everybody who has talked about Hammond Woods. She was one of the original owners. She passed away 2 years ago. She was almost 100. She was one of the most committed stewards of the Goodman houses that anyone could imagine. This is Gladys's house, and on the left, the railing on the left is the only one like it in Hammond Woods. And I always wondered if it was original, because even though Hammond Woods has its limited number of models and it has its standard components that are used throughout, there are a couple places where there are things that are unique and that are necessary because of topography. And so the railing on the left is either original or it would have been approved by the committee, because Gladys would never have done anything without the approval. And on the right, there are most of the stairs in Hammond Wood are simple poured concrete, square-edged, very straightforward, and originally had no railings. There are 2 stairs that go up a full story. Most of the others are between 2 or 3 risers, or perhaps a half a flight. The 2 stairs that go up a full story do have this original rail with the thick 2x on the top and the pipes. And it also has poured concrete steps that have the shadow line under the tread. And it's unique to these 2 locations. This stair, which is next door to Gladys's, has the same rail. And this goes up to an upper terrace and then splits off to provide entries to these 2 homes. So this is a railing that we're used to seeing in modern houses. But if people are doing railings now, they may not be inclined to do something quite so heavy. Or, as most of the other stairs did not have railings to begin with, people have added railings. And that can be done, as Mark has said to me many times, show me the railing and I'll tell you if it's a good building. And he can tell you the original source of that. I can't. We have had, in recent memory, 8 6 or 8 examples of houses that have gone on the market, have been bought by people who wanted to do quick renovations and flip. That's new to our neighborhood, and this is one of the cautionary tales and issues with not having any sort of design review. On the left, this is just finished, and there was some contractor who thought that was an appropriate railing and mailbox to put in our neighborhood. On the right is also a new railing. Not perfect, perhaps. It sinks into the landscape. It's simple. Its vocabulary is much more in the that of the original. And so, okay, it's improving. On the left here is a railing. Those are original stairs that didn't have railings originally. That one, okay, not bad. When that was put in, which was decades ago, it probably was about as minimal as they could have. And on the right, still has the original concrete steps. On the right, this is actually the house Mark grew up in. The stairs have been overlaid with bluestone. You can see, this is a little bit curious, you can see right here the original retaining wall, and then there's been a second retaining wall put in front of it in bluestone, which is a little bit curious, but it does kind of sink into the landscape. And that railing is brand new, and it is it meets the minimal materiality settling into the landscape. But these are all things, that you can just see wandering around the neighborhood. Fences, there were no fences. The overwhelming majority of our houses now have fences. The top fence is an example of changes that are required when the world changes. There are 2 Hammond houses behind that fence. When they were built, the road to the right, which is Veers Mill, was 2 lanes, and there were cows on the other side of the street. It's now 6 lanes. It is high traffic. It is about to become a mass transit corridor for Montgomery County because we're within a mile of the Wheaton Metro. And those residents need protection from the street. So, all right, you have to do a fence. This one, at least, was considered. Lower left is just appeared in the neighborhood again. It is a house that was bought to flip. And there is nowhere in the neighborhood where there is a fence that treats the street that meanly. But we have no design review. I assume it's to code. They've shocked everyone with that. The middle one is actually a house that Michael Cook did. And Michael did the renovations on the Severide house, which some people will be going to see this evening. He's done several renovations in our neighborhood. And you can see that he has picked up on the materiality. He's used boards that mimic the tongue and groove of the house. It's not too tall. One can see through it. He is thinking about what is in the spirit of the house. And then on the right is just what seems to be the default fence, and it's kind of okay, maybe no harm done. It's nice on both sides. You're not giving the neighbors a bad side. It kind of disappears in the landscape. People plant against it, and it's sort of the most neutral that seems typical in the neighborhood.
I'm so sorry that we have to wrap pretty quickly.
Okay, I'll go faster. Kitchens. On the right, original kitchen. On the left, a new one that takes up on the spirit of it. And when you say how quickly, you mean like now? Okay, these are other kitchens. The lower left has this, what was an open kitchen in 1950. Above it shows where it's been cut away, but part of it has remained. And then I'll go, this is the original bathroom, a renovated bathroom that also is about materiality, simplicity, and cleanness. This is an entry has been filled in. Below is the house type that has the open porch. Above it's filled in. An interior shot. This addition has gotten the residents, an entry space because these houses really do open fairly directly. Do I need to stop now? Okay. This house, I can end with this. This house, upper left, was David Condon's house. And if you look to the right, that's the same model of house that shows that the chimney, it was like Mark's house, that the chimney sort of faces the street. You walk around it to enter. I don't know that David did this addition, but I will say several people have done variations on it. This one is by far the best. So he has extended it on the other side of the chimney, but in a way that one still reads the mass of the chimney. And what most of the time when people did this particular addition, which was probably 3 of them in the neighborhood, they picked up a genuine entry and often a half bath, because this house was one of the 800 square foot one-bath houses. And original windows, we've heard a lot about it. So these are variations on how they have been handled. This is, again, one of the people who flipped. The one on the left shows when you want them all to be operative, what it does to the lines of the windows. And this is one that was just redone, and there are actually operating windows mixed in with that, but they are so thin in profile and so properly sized and installed that it is in the spirit. And thank you.